Hi, it's Addie Kelser with Urban Fitness Twin Cities, and today Keita and I are continuing our theme this month of stretches to help you be pain-free in your back. So if you feel like your low back especially, but other parts of your back are tight, these are some nice stretches, nice gentle stretches that you can try to help relieve some of that tension. So if you have a mat, go ahead and roll it out and join us for cat and cow and then also child's pose. So Keita, I'm going to have you come to all fours. So you're going to come to your hands and your knees. And as always with this on all fours position, we want to make sure that her shoulders are stacked over her wrists and then her hips are stacked over her knees, so she's creating this box shape. And she's starting in neutral, so her spine is fairly flat and her neck is an extension of what the rest of her spine is doing. Her head isn't falling down toward the mat or looking out in front of her. So the first one we're going to do is going to be cat, and we're going to start this from the beginning of this, from the middle of the spine. So pulling your belly button in, that's kind of the first thing we want to do to get prepared. She's going to begin to lift right here in the middle of her spine, creating a rounded effect. So each one of these vertebrae, as we go toward her head and her tailbone, is going to lift up, and then her tailbone is allowed to tuck under along with the top of her head. And we're going to do the reverse to get into cow. So everything's going to stay in this rounded shape except for this very center. We're going to start to allow the very center to fall down, and then each one of these is allowed to come into a small extension. So don't feel like when you're doing cow you have to come into a really deep extension. It can just be a little bit of a curve, especially if your back is giving you trouble today. So that's our cat and cow position. And then anytime you do spinal extension like this, a really good pose afterward is to go into child's pose. So once you come out of this last cat position, Keita, I'll have you send your hips, you're gonna bend your hips and your knees and send your hips back toward your feet. So she's actually gonna sit back on her heels and reach her hands really far out in front of her to help her get an even deeper stretch into her shoulder joint right through here. So this is a really nice low back opener, and you can kind of just relax and soften into this stretch. If your knees are telling you that this is too much flexion for them, there are alternatives to child's pose to still stretch out your back, and we'll go over some of those later in the month. But one thing I would suggest, if you feel uncomfortable here, or if you feel like you can't get a deep enough breath because you just are constricted in your space folded up, is to simply widen the knees. So Keita, I'll have you show that where you just widen your knees a little bit wider. And you can do this with your feet separated or your feet together, and then the knees are wide, and just allows a little more space for your stomach and your chest to be in that folded position. Good, so that's cat and cow and child's pose, and these are awesome gentle stretches to help you relieve any back tightness that you might be having. So let us know what you think.